My name is Sihle. I'm 38 years old. So, firstly, for me to go to Nigeria was because of a church here in South Africa. Um, the prophet of that church had shown us videos of TB Joshua, a lot of them, and he had told us that he's the spiritual son to TB Joshua. So that's how most of us ended up going to TB Joshua. And I went to TB Joshua's church. And when I got there, I thought it was just a normal visitation. Moreover, I had an ear operation. And even after the operation, I still had a bit of struggle to hear on my left side. So when I went to TB Joshua's church, we've seen this man healing people. We've seen him do these miraculous things. So you go there from a point of, I'm also going to get healed. Moreover, I want to get closer to God because this man is telling us how he is the voice of God and very close to God. So I was in Nigeria and I was chosen amongst people at the prayer line to say, I need to stay there and be an evangelist for God. And I was not asked, but I was chosen and I was told I need to stay to be an evangelist for God. And because you are already, remember, they've created this scenario that being close to the man of God is a status quo. Being close to him is a privilege. So automatically you already infused in that vibe of, oh my God, I am the luckiest person on earth to be chosen by this man to stay in his church. And what made it comfortable by then is that I had seen other girls from all over the world, from the UK, from Singapore, from everywhere. And again, I was introduced to one of the first white South African girls, Angie, who stayed there. So, and I was introduced to Michelle also, who stayed there. And I was the first black South African girl to stay there. So it made it look so beautiful and so easy for me to be there. And when I was in the church, obviously they knew that I could sing. The church that I came from in South Africa, I was in the worship team. But in Nigeria, they call it the choristers. So I became part of the chorister team. I was then brought closer with the three main lead singers, the three sisters, which is Anu, Anne, and Bosse. And I was part of the worship team there. If it's not worship that we're doing, I would be working in the admin department. If I'm not in the admin department, they would basically give you different chores to do, or you working in the visitors department. But yeah, I was there. Well, I think I was around about 20, 20, 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And I stayed there for about, I'm not sure, about 3 to 4 years at the church, roughly three to 4 years, yeah. Well, my mom was very happy because the church from South Africa that took us there, for her, it was your daughter is chosen, the first black South African to stay there. And it also gained her favor with her prophet here in South Africa because it's a status quo thing. Because again, even the church in South Africa was now elevated to another level to say, their girl is chosen from that church to stay at Nigeria. My father, on the other hand, was not impressed because no one knew that I wouldn't come back. I thought I'm going there for 7 days and I'm coming back. He was not impressed. He was not happy about it. And even when I called him to say, I'm not coming back home, prophet said I must stay, I did express to the prophet that my dad is not happy. My dad doesn't want me to stay there. As a result, Prophet TB Joshua then paid for my dad, my mom, and my brother to fly down to Nigeria because he needed to reassure them of my safety and to reassure them that indeed it's a calling from God. My dad, in the beginning, he was not buying it. And I think because at that time, xenophobia was still very high. So he couldn't understand why would I leave South Africa and come and stay in Nigeria. I mean, I had just started working and I had just bought my first car, a Fiat Palio, and I was staying in my first apartment in Auckland Park. So he couldn't understand what was going on. But at the end of his trip with his visit at TB Joshua, he was more convinced than ever that, okay, I can stay here after he had had his encounter with TB Joshua behind the scenes. In the beginning, everything was nice. I mean, I was then taught to no longer call him prophet. I must now call him daddy because he's our father. So you get used to, this is our Father, He loves us, He protects us. But then you start getting to see sides where He becomes physical with not just with people, with disciples. I mean, we had disciple class that would start at about 10, 11, sometimes 1 a.m. You don't sleep if daddy's not sleeping. You have to be at disciple class. So automatically, you are already, they were already working on you because you're seeing how disciples get disciplined. You're seeing how if you have confided in somebody about something at a disciple meeting at night, they would report you. Somebody would publicly say in the meeting, Daddy, Sister Sihle said 1, 2, 3. And then others around them must support whatever daddy's reaction is to you. So automatically you saw that this was a system where we can't trust each other here. Whatever happens to me must stay with me, because if I tell the next person, that person will then go and publicly tell daddy or tell on me at the disciple meeting, and that will just, there are repercussions, consequences. You'll find yourself being punished. You'll find yourself, it's either you're heavily beaten or you have to beg for forgiveness, or you're just, the worst could happen to you. So you're already drained out and they've worked on you mentally. You hardly sleep. There's no sleep. You can't sleep when daddy's not sleeping. You're working all the time and you're always very alert and conscious of your surroundings, because you never know who's watching you, and you have to be careful what you say to whom and how. So within the disciples, started noticing that amongst disciples, some people had little relationships amongst themselves, where the disciples themselves sometimes would be intimate with each other. And you then discovered that, so this is done in rooms where when there are no visitors, but daddy wouldn't see it, and you wouldn't understand why not. But the fascinating part is certain girls were always called up to the 5-story building. And when you asked, I remember I was in trouble because I used to ask girls to say, but how come you're the only one that goes to 5-story? And what happens at the 5-story building? So at one disciple meeting, I was reported upon to say, Daddy, Sister Sihle was asking me why I'm always at the 5-story business, at 5-story building. And I was in trouble for that. But obviously, I wanted to know, why do these specific girls go to 5-story building? And when they go there, they have their Bibles and notes. Remember, we all want to be closer to the man of God. You need to be closer to him. And one day when I least expected, I also got the call to say, Daddy needs you at the 5-story building. And I went up to the 5-story building, very excited, eagerly awaiting to see or experience what other people experience there. Because, I mean, you think that you're getting closer to heaven. I mean, maybe he's praying for you. Maybe he's going to give you more Bible scriptures. You don't know, but it's a status quo kind of thing. And lo and behold, you walk into 5-story, and then there are the 5-story boys there. These are the boys that looked after him completely. And as soon as you get there, he dismisses them off. And he just looked at me. And he said, oh yeah, Sihle, take off your pants. And at that moment, you're not sure if, is this really happening or am I dreaming? Like your mind is twofold and everything. But at the end of the day, you end up submitting to what he says. And he has your way with you. And when he's done, it's as if nothing happened, and he asks you to leave. It was never consensual because, as I say, you walk in and he says, take your pants off. And remember, you've already been worked on and broken down to a point where you don't have the capacity to think for yourself anymore. Anything you believe that's right there is what is said by daddy. If daddy said, it's true. So it was not, I can't say it was consensual. It happened. And you come out of it, and then he will tell you, now you're spiritually connected to me. And he looks you straight in the eyes and says, now you're spiritually connected to me. You're spiritually with me forever. So for you, it's a mind over matter kind of thing, because once you leave there, there was a sister called Bisola. She's also in the documentary. She was his pimp. And once you leave the 5-story, for some reason, you would bump into her. And immediately she'd give you a chore to do. She'd basically monitor your behavior after the experience as to who you talk to, what are you doing. So automatically you kept so busy so that you literally don't even have time to tell anyone. But at the same time, who would I tell? Because already you've been introduced to the system of seeing how when you report, or I mean, when you tell somebody something, that night you're going to get reported and you're going to get the punishment that comes with it. The worst punishment I got, I was chased out of the church to sleep in the car park. Now, the car park is attached to the church building, but it's an open place where they called it the car park because that's where his ambulances and cars used to park. And I was made to sleep there for a month because I was told I'm rebellion, I'm very proud, and I needed that was done so that it could kill the flesh, it could kill my pride, because they said to die when your flesh is dead. You need to die unto Christ your flesh needs to die for Christ to resurrect in you. So I was in the car park for about a month where and disciples are told, if somebody is being disciplined, you don't talk to them. You have no relationship with those people. You leave them at the car park like that. The only thing they do, if somebody gives you food, they give it to you secretly because they can't publicly be seen to be talking to you, having anything to do with you. So that's the worst form of discipline I received. I mean, you're at the car park and the only time you would pray is for daddy to walk past, because sometimes there were so many entrances, so many passages within the synagogue. So when you see him walking past the car park, you would literally run to him and plead for mercy. Daddy, forgive me, because you want to go back in. You want to go back into the system. So he's basically trying to tame you to a limit of saying, if your flesh is not dead, you're not coming back here. Mind you, he has your passport. Where are you going to go to? Because they keep our passports. Personally, I've been talking about not just my abuse at the hands of churches, pastors, and the religious sector. Because the abuse started in South Africa at this church that took us there. Because at that church, I was chosen yet again, and I was staying in the mission house. So this pastor, same modus operandi as TB Joshua, but TB Joshua is on a higher scale because TB Joshua is the spiritual dad. This pastor had a mission house in Parktown where he kept young girls that he chose. And this is where we saw the worst atrocities ever that were happening to young girls. And I started speaking from then. But the more you speak about, oh my God, this is what I saw, this is what happened, that is when you're being silenced. Because then they would say, it's not you, it's the demon in you and you need deliverance. It's the devil in you speaking, you need deliverance, you know? And then when you get to Nigeria, the same thing happens. So automatically you think, okay, this is how life is. And unexpectedly so, you still get shocked because you're thinking, but this is the godfather of Christianity. This is the man close to God's mouth. Why would he then do this also? So I've been talking, but people were not listening. When it comes to TB Joshua's ordeal with me, it's funny how when we had a reunion with the victims, we all, for the first time, started speaking about that TB Joshua actually sexually abused us when BBC approached us to say, it's a safe space, we've been investigating, you need to tell your truth. All along, most of us would just say, no, it was just an unspoken truth that disciples would amongst each other, and that's that. Because you feared to actually say TB Joshua did, because we saw how when Sister Bisola went out and publicly said TB Joshua did this to her, how he ostracized her, how he sent people to want to kill her, how he campaigned against her. So you were scared for yourself, for your life, to say, I'd rather talk about everyone else but keep him clean, because we knew that he was capable of more, and you were afraid. Until you've walked in my shoes, you will never understand. Hang 10. The trauma that Sihle Sibisi grew up under, the trauma that she's been subjected to. Hang 10. Have you ever took time out to find that maybe, possibly, this is a woman who's been hurt and she's going through the most, and she's now on a healing journey, and that is why the foundation was born. Kwanele Foundation was born during the time of COVID because there was no one around. Everyone was locked down in the houses, and I had to face myself and introspect to say, Sihle Sibisi, why? What happened to you? What happened to your life? And that's when I had to face the reality of the church hurt that I was exposed to from the age of 16. And that is when Kwanele Mfundisi started. In the beginning, it was called Kwanele Mfundisi, trying to say, this is what I went through at the hands of pastors, churches, and the religious sector. So to everyone that's trolling and saying whatever that I'm seeking attention, they must just be thankful that none of their wives, daughters, or children have ever or will ever go through what I went through. That is why I say, if I'm the sacrificial lamb for people's eyes to be opened to the atrocities that happen within the church, then let it be. Because if not for the pain that I went through at the hands of churches, pastors, and the religious sector, Kwanele Mfundisi was not going to be born. And that means Kwanele Foundation was not going to be born. Have I received threats? Personally, no. It's just people who will just comment and write whatever they feel they need to write on social media. But so many things have been formulated about my name, because remember, when people are doing smear campaigns, what people don't know is they will say anything and everything under the face of the sun to want to troll you. And those who don't take time to want to get to know who this person is, what is this about, they easily believe it and they easily drag your name through the mud. So am I getting threats personally right now? I haven't heard of any, or maybe I haven't received any, except that I'm seeing on social media where people are just writing whatever that they feel they want to write and saying whatever that they feel they want to say. But I'm glad that the documentary happened. And for me, it's vindication on my part, because yes, if you say Sihle Sibisi has been lying all these years about TB Joshua, so are you saying everyone on the documentary was lying also? Do I fear for my life? Personally, I don't. I won't say I fear for my life right now, because my conscience is clear. I've done nothing wrong except amplifying my voice about the traumas and the pains that I've been through. Maybe I would fear for my life if I was creating stuff and walking on people's toes. But if I'm going to speak about my traumas and the pains that I've gone through, surely there's someone who's watching or listening to this who can somehow relate to the traumas I've been through, and they can also find the courage to speak out. Do I fear for my life? As I sit with you now, no, I don't. I'm just sad for my son and my daughter, who they know the truth. With the TB Joshua story, I've been telling them. They were previewed to, when BBC was in South Africa, when they were interviewing us, they were previewed to all that, to that information. But I'm just sad for them on the level that my kids are old now, they can read. And they are seeing what's happening on social media and YouTube and what people are saying. You know, for me, is it healing after the documentary? Definitely. Healing, because for the first time, you're able to own that part of your story that you were so afraid to talk about. That even me too. I also went to 5-Story. I also went to the Prayer Mountain, and he also had his way with me. So you're able to own that story now without fear. So now it's opening up wounds, and you have to relive this pain now, where you're reliving all of this. So yes, it's a journey of healing. Am I happy that he died before he could give his right of reply? No, I'm not. But at the same time, you ask yourself, what would he have said? I had to learn to accept an apology that I'll never receive, because he's dead. We're prepared for the backlash. I mean, that we know they're staunch believers. There are people who will live and die for their papas and daddies. So the backlash is nothing surprising. Where to from now? We soldier on. Kwanele Foundation soldiers on. We will not turn a blind eye to gender-based violence and femicide. And I always say that I amplify my voice against the ills, gender-based violence and femicide, and nothing or no one can silence me. It happened to me, and I speak my truth. Because yes, you will troll me, you will say whatever, you will want to do whatever to discredit me, but this is my journey of healing. I will not live by people's praises, because if I do that, I'm going to die by their criticisms. I cannot do that for my sanity. So where to from now on? Kwanele Foundation soldiers on.